Dear learners, welcome to this session on physical and socio-cultural dynamics and farming. Now, as we are aware, India is predominantly a rural economy and farming is one of the main occupation for most of the rural people living in the villages. These villages are basically a combination of several physical and socio-cultural dynamics, and therefore these have higher implications on the type of farming and its success. In this session, we are going to see some of the important elements associated with the physical and socio-cultural dynamics and the farming. We will see what are the important physical structure of rural society and what are the dynamics of physical structure of a society on farming, the social structure of rural society and what makes the rural society, and the social institutions that are existing in the society and the rural structure in India. At the end of this session, you will be able to explain the physical structure of rural society and also to describe the dynamics of physical structure of a society on farming and to explain the social structure in a rural society. And at the end, we will see how the social institutions have their role to play in the farming in the villages. In rural and urban scenarios, several facets are similar to one another. There is also a lot of interdependence between the rural and urban life because in case of rural scenario, the rural people depend on the finished products of the urban areas and the urban people depend on the raw materials from the farmers and their agriculture. There are certain distinctive features which separate them from each other in terms of their size and demographic composition and also the cultural moorings and the style of life, the economy, employment and social relations. But despite of these features, there are also the physical and socio-cultural dynamics that have implications on farming more from the rural area than the urban scenario. The physical structure of a rural society is predominantly the tangible entities in a rural society, and these tangible entities include the components which can be measured in a society. The major components of physical structure of rural society are mostly the patterns of settlement. This defines a village or a village life, and then the resources that are present in the society, and the type and spatial distribution of the houses, and the population characteristics. Coming to the patterns of settlement, there are different factors that influence the type of settlement in any village. And as per Sorokin in 1930, the broad classification are on the basis of the influence of natural conditions or the influence of social conditions and the influence of agriculture economy. These patterns of settlement, if you look at some of the different patterns existing in India as well as in several other countries, there are isolated farmsteads where the farmer will be at the center of his farm and the farms are spread and individual farmers, they stay in their farms. In the villages, the group of people, they stay in a closed locality in a group. And in the line villages, the pattern of settlement is mainly decided either by a river or a water source or any other physical feature that supports the living in the rural areas. There are certain round villages or the circular villages. Now, this is basically a pattern found mostly in some of the countries like Israel, wherein the village settlers will mostly settle around a circular pattern. And besides this, there are certain other elements or patterns of rural India, especially you see these things like hamlets, where certain type of people, they stay close to a group of families staying in a village. And in the other patterns of settlement, some of the villagers, they stay around an important event, cultural especially. For example, the temple or a mosque or a church is built and there are certain activities happening in these particular religious centers, and around these centers the villages develop and the pattern of settlement is defined. In any rural society, basically it is the resources that makes the village and its composition. And basically when it comes to the resources, both the natural and the man-made material are the components of resources, and these resources are essentially able to meet the needs of the individuals and the needs of the society settled in a particular village. The natural resources such as the land, water, climate, other resources, the mangroves and the minerals, They define the type of agriculture, the farming operations, etc. And besides this, there are certain man-made resources like the communication facilities, including the road and the transport, the health and the welfare facilities, the supply and service agencies, the marketing facilities, etc. These are created by the farmers and the farming community to support their vocation. And other than this, there are human resources. Obviously, in a village, if you look at their composition, they are mainly vocational human resources, which also define the type of rural society in India. And besides this, there are the type and spatial distribution of houses. For example, if you look at most of the times in villages, the houses are closely situated and they even share some of the walls and very narrow area to connect to each other. And then there are population characteristics of a village or a rural life, which is basically defined by the birth rate, the fertility ratio, the life expectancy, the death rate, the age and sex composition of the village, etc. Now, coming to the physical structure, the dynamics involving the physical structure of a society on farming is the physical structure has great impact on the farming system in India simply because the physical features, especially that what we discussed already, the land and the water resources and the mineral resources, basically define the profitability of the agriculture. Many years ago, when there was no technology influx or a minimum technology influx, the farming was main source of income for rural families. Now, in fact, there is an increasing dilution happening in the towns and the villages and the towns and the urban areas, but still the migration is happening as a result of higher literacy levels and as a result of more opportunities of doing job. And also there is a feeling that agriculture is overpopulated, and therefore sometimes this has also led to a shortage of agriculture laborers. Thereby there is a shift happening from agriculture in many other rural areas. Now, coming to the social structure of a rural society, other than the physical structure, what defines a rural society is basically an organized pattern of their interrelated obligations and rights of a persons and groups in a system of interaction. And the social structure basically refers to a particular arrangement of the interrelated institutions, the agencies and the social patterns, and also the statutes and the rules which each person assumes in the group. And this dynamics is more abstract in nature, and this basically the structure is very, very dynamic in the sense that the what we call as the value system or the social fabric keeps changing from time to time and also from generation to generation. And then the social structure has a continuity that despite the change that are happening within the society, there are threads of certain similar patterns that exist in the past which are continued to the present time also. And the another important character of the social structure is it is universal and it meets the needs of the members. The social pattern or the social structure usually evolves based on the needs of the members, and it is also have the backing of the people living there. What makes the social structure in its composition is basically the groups of the farmers, the groups of the villagers that are settled around the pattern of settlement. And the another important element of the social structure in a village is the status and the roles. If you look at the status and the roles, these are basically defined both by their economic and the social status. And also the caste is one of the status symbol in several villages in the country. There are certain cultural values which are again decided by the historical past of those villages and also defined by the religious practices carried out by different village systems. There are other social institutions that makes the social structure. These institutions may include starting from the basic institutions like the marriage, the family, kinship, and even the evolved social institutions. And also coming to later part of the social structure, the polity of the village is also coming into the picture. The social institution is basically an organized system of social relationships which embodies certain common values and procedures and meets certain basic needs of the society. And as we are aware, there are 5 basic social institutions in the society, And family is considered as one of the most basic social institution and the first basic social institution in the rural society. So other than the family, the religion, the economy, the governance and the education are important social institutions existing in a rural society. Since family is the most important basic social institute, we will discuss more on the family in the coming slides. But what is these importance of the social institutions? Basically, these social institutions determine the kinship in the village and they regulate the distribution of goods and services. Because according to the social institutions, there is already an agreed or an unsaid, unwritten rules in the village where how they distribute the goods and services within the villagers. It also provides the legitimate use of power because if you look at certain religious sects, certain religious classes, they will have the final authority to conduct certain ceremonies and rituals in the villages. So similarly, it provides the legitimate power to certain other people to practice their particular profession. The social institutions also transmit knowledge from one generation to another, and religion is one of the important thing that we can connect quickly coming to this importance. The social institutions also regulate our relationship to the supernatural power. Sometimes, in the village life, the religious practice leading to the mental peace, they have evolved a system of presuming that there is something supernatural that controls the things beyond the human efforts. Coming to the characteristics of the social institutions, institution is the means of controlling individuals. Because of the social pressure and the cultural values, there is also an order in the society, and therefore the institution depends on the collective activities of the people, where the institutions evolve depending on the collective decisions of the people. Institution has definite proceedings which are formed on the basis of customs and slogans, and institutions are more stable. At the same time, they are dynamic also. And the institution consists of set of rules which must be obeyed by all people, and it has been discussed already. And the institution has got a definite symbol which may be material or non-material. So several institutions, they have their practices and the occupations which are basically defined by certain material and even the non-material symbols. The institution is formed to satisfy the primary needs of the people, and therefore many a times these are very specialized roles and responsibilities performed in a society. Institutions have several functions which we have seen in the importance section of the institutions. But to add to the importance point, the institutions prescribe the appropriate ways of acting or people in different situations depending on the value system of the society. Institutions also define the status and the roles as described already. And the other forms of social relations people are expected to assume in the course of their living. Institutions serve as mechanism of social control and they exert pressure for conformity. So this has been told already as how in a society the laws and the status and the statutes defined by the elderly people or the people living in the villages, they form their own decisions and conform to these decisions of the elders in the society in several ways. Then institutions also serve to provide the coordination and stability to culture. Because many times the fast-paced urban life, why it is not happening in villages is because of the conformity to the culture that is existing in the villages. Coming to one of the important basic social institution, as we mentioned already, the family. The family institution is based on several different types. One is the structure of the family, which is defined either by the patriarchal or the matriarchal family. And also sometimes the family is decided by the residency, that is the matrilocal and the patrilocal, where the married boy goes to a girl's house or a married girl goes to a husband's house is decided based on the residency. And based on the marriage, sometimes the monogamous, polygamous and the polyandrous family situations are there, where a woman or a man will have multiple spouses, and this defines the social institution in a family. Based on the ancestry, sometimes the matrilineal family and the patrilineal family will be there, where the inheritance of the property and other important decisions will happen from mother to the mother, or in case of patrilineal family, the inheritance happens from the father to the next generation sons. So this decides the social institutions, and many times there are combination of all these factors that decides the type of family existing in the rural society. Since not only that, the social institutions basically define the type of farming that is practiced in a village. Therefore, all the physical features and the social institutions that we discussed so far will have an impact on the rural structure in India. And this will decide the type of settlement, such as the nucleated villages or the linear settlements, or the scattering of homesteads or clusters of 2 or 3 houses in a village. And these nucleated villages or the linear settlements usually happen depending on, again, the physical and the cultural institutions or the social institutions in a village. And there are different institutions like the family and the kinship, the lineage and the kinship, caste, village. They also decide the rural structure in India, because there are certain pockets of physical area where certain type of caste people or the certain type of the families stay, and they will also have the physical boundaries and the cultural or the social demarcations. Dear learners, to conclude, the rural structure is basically identified by the physical features as well as the social characteristics. And these physical and the social characteristics basically define how the farming is practiced and how the farming is pursued in a village life. And therefore, all the physical and the social institutions that are being seen as a dynamic factors, or which are being affected by several other factors like technology and opportunities in urban areas, the weakness or the strength of the bonding of these social and the physical features are also affecting the farming and the rural life in India. Thank you very much.